Good evening, everyone. Deadman Walking 55 here at 1 minute after 8 p.m. on the East Coast. Oh my gosh, folks. Deadman is on a clock tonight. Deadman has got to hold within 90 minutes. Can it be done? Is it possible? I don't know. Those questions and more with this show tonight. So, hey, without further ado, then, let me bring to you very timely on this topic. I'm an SEC Southeastern Conference football snob. Every other conference bows below us. Well, we will respect one, but we'll give him some room. But this guy has all my respect. He's from the heartland. He's from the big conference out there, the big old Big 12 world. Let's bring in the great Whoopa Troopa. Whoopa, how are you tonight?
Hello, yeah, you got the typical SEC snobbery over here.
Exactly. Hey, but you know what? You've got my respect, sir. You are all Big 12, and it's great to have a Big 12 perspective, especially with the all I call it all hell breaking loose in the world of college football,
hmm
conference alignments and stuff.
Yeah,
I've never
there's
seen anything in my 53 years of existence, and yes, at 5 years old, I was watching the SEC conference very closely. Have you? What is there anything in pro college, anything that you've seen with what we're seeing having happen and rumors of?
no, I mean this is pretty insane. The only thing I can think of is first of all, I know probably right before I was born, kind of how the Power Five conferences really got formed. But I don't think that was as crazy as this. And the only other thing I can think of is recently the changes that have happened with the MLB, the AL, and the NL, pretty much
Mhm.
becoming the same thing. Uh, that was pretty huge, but I don't think that there was that much mayhem as is going on right now.
Probably the closest thing I can equate it to, but it took some time, is baseball with their realignments, moving around divisions. I call it the inbreeding play. You know, there's no longer the National League, American League. I'm glad you laughed at that, but yes,
Yeah, it's a
you
lot
know,
of interleague play, and that's the thing. I think the MLB is the best. They did have a lot interleague play introduced, and now they've just changed it so much. I mean, first of all, the two leagues are the same. There's no real. They might as well just call it the National Division and American Division or Conference or whatever.
right.
There's no differences between the two, and it frustrates me as a National League fan. But uh, that's how it goes, and I think that's the closest thing. But this is just, I guess, with that, it was kind of rules came down from on high. They're changing it, and that's how it goes. This is, you know, we've had speculation going on for a long time, and this is, we don't know what's going on.
Well, folks, and the moment you think you know, it changes, because there's another thing that I just saw a little bit a while ago. Hopefully, I can remember to bring it up in the time that we have. But Whoopa, let's greet some people. Hey, folks, make sure we're on the Twitch side. Follow us over there if you haven't. We are at 426 subscribers on the YouTube side. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, especially if you enjoy this tonight. And hit that like button no matter what you do. Hey, share it out with friends, neighbors, dogs, bring the drunks, all the other friends that you got. We'll bring them and we'll have a big party together. So that's what that's what we're here for, is to entertain and have fun, and at the end of the day, laugh. Especially last year when my picks sucked all the time, and Whoopa actually
Mm,
beat me one week, and it's
I beat you
uh,
in football and beat you in basketball.
I know it's okay. I don't mind getting my ass kicked by a good friend. It's okay. It's good. Hey, you guys hanging out is what is wonderful and great. So let's do that. Let's look through the chat real quick. We got the great Castle, who's firstish. I'm glad he spelled that properly. So anyway, hey, good to see you, Castle. Buddy Hepburn with the pink hand waving. All right, good to see you tonight, buddy. And of course, this dad man walking guy with all the we're starting soon. So hey, more
Who's that
conference
guy?
realignment. I don't know. Like with this guy, Whoopa Troopa, this is the class act of the group. So, and let me
Yeah,
shout
see, I
out.
put I put on a hat and stuff. That man
Yeah.
didn't put on any clothes.
Hey, I'm a football.
I
I'm a
guess that's true.
football. A few stitches. So hey, and let me say hello to the great Yemi. Yemi, how are you this evening? And a new one to the channel, the great MC Wali. Howdy, you, sir. Good to have you with us tonight. Good to see you. And also Jace OG. All right. I think that's a new name too. Hey, good to see everybody here. Hey, got some new people too. Hey. It's wonderful. And Death Wish, good to see you again. So hey, it's awesome to see all kinds of new. Oh, Whoop app, Whoops here. Yeah,
Whoop.
got plenty of highs. So hey, and Yemi, hey, bro, you're here. Yeah, we're going through here, and Daisy Blossom, hey, Daisy. By the way, folks, will be my first guest on the college football series that starts. So it will be on September 1st, a Friday evening. Uh, Daisy will be my first guest of this season because I gave her a specific project to learn about the Utah Utes since she's out that way, which we may have some good information about YouTube. The YouTube, Utah, Utah. It's coming up tonight, my friends.
The Utah
And
YouTubers.
yeah, exactly. What's a YouTuber? Anyway, Fred Gwynn's voice. Sniper the Duck. Yo, we got 10 people here with us tonight. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Like I said, smash that like button. Subscribe if you haven't. Hopefully, you enjoy what this. We got playlists. If you like the sports, we have our March Madness stuff. We have our last season's college football shows that are in our playlist. So go back and check those out. Really, really fun. And Whoopa has been a great friend of the channel coming in. Helping me with some sports stuff off and on over the few months. So I did say Daisy Blossom. I need to make sure. Okay, folks. Hey, where do we start with this? Well, I will tell you where I started first. Okay, and I was a little bit late to the party with it, but really where I started was with the Colorado Buffalo. You know, not the first in this, not the first in the waves that happened. But it's one that really got my attention to put some reality to the situation. All right, so what we got here is we have this article from July 27th. The Colorado lead the Pac-12 to return to the Big 12 in 2024. All right. This is on the heels of the USC Trojans and UCLA Bruins leaving for the Big 10 in 2024. One of my pet peeves is the Big Ten needs to get a grip on itself and pick a number or something, or change it from a number because they're never the right number anymore. But with that, 3 teams now with that officially lead the Pac-10 conference. 2 to the Big 10, 1 to, at this point to the Big 12. We also know this is on the heels of Texas and Oklahoma leaving for the SEC in 2024. More on that part is come. Where I wanted to start was really with Uwupa. Okay, how does this go with what you know in the Big 12? I mean, Colorado was a historic. Well, they were Big 8. You know how the Big 8 became the Big 12 and all that over the years, or the Southwest Conference merged with the Big. That whole history out there. But the Big 12, Colorado left. Now they're coming back. Is that a natural rivalry out there that was missed when Colorado left to go to the Pac-12?
Not really. If I remember correctly, Colorado State was there too, right? Or is that no? Was there
No, it
always
was
in
Colorado, the Buffalo.
I knew Colorado was there. I mean, I don't think Colorado ever really had a geographical rival. They're basically what BYU is now.
Mm.
You know, where I guess once they get Colorado, they'll have someone nearby. But it was kind of like, who's around Colorado?
Yeah.
At the old Big 12 at the time when you had Missouri still in and all the Texas teams, and it's kind of like, yeah, no one's really there.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember a time when people were like, oh, Colorado has not been super relevant for a while now.
Right.
So like there was never the point where, ooh, you better look out for this Colorado team.
No, never, except they were not relevant till back in the Cordell Stewart days. But hello, Emily Gangading. Good to see you. Welcome in here, folks. Good to see you. We got 10 people with us. So, well, Whoopa, that was interesting because I'd seen some reports that said it was kind of a natural fit getting them back to the Big 12. But
I think out of the Pac-12 teams, they make, I don't know if I'd say the most sense, but close to the most sense at the very least.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So what this illustrates, with USC and UCLA leaving, I've heard the Big Ten talking about wanting to be a national conference, like from coast to coast, and which is an interesting concept when you think of money and expense, travel cost, all that stuff. Because historically, conferences have really been within the same geographic region for the most part. I mean, the
Yeah.
larger conferences. But now, if you have a Pac-12 conference now that will have lost three major teams. Uh, so it's down 75%. And we're going to talk some about some of the other rumors coming from. It looks like the future could be kind of bleak for the Pac 12 because if you're trying to replace three teams like that, who do you replace them with?
No, and that's the thing, especially with the Pac-12. I mean, who's nearby? Like you're going to have to get there's some people you could get, but they're not going to raise your status. Like the guys that SEC have added, I would say I think UT hasn't been relevant since the first George W. Bush term. Or no, I guess the second one too. But really, I mean, it's been a while. UT likes to act like they're still good, and they haven't been for a long, long time. I saw someone talking trash. They're like, "Oh, this guy's not going to get," because someone said, "Oh, their coach is on the hot seat." They said, "Oh, they're good enough to easily beat that terrible conference." Like, oh, just like you have for the last, it's like you haven't done since 2009. Like you guys, I'm pretty sure. Gosh, there's so many teams have won before since then. It's anyway.
A lot of teams live on their history, what they did 30, 40 years ago. I went to a basketball school that lived on one NCAA final appearance. So
It's
but
crazy.
yeah.
I just don't understand. I guess Baylor's been somewhat lucky with recent success, but it's just like
Yep.
I remember still. I think it was my freshman year when we were supposed to be good, and then we got a bunch of injuries and a lot of controversy. Uh, that we were playing our third string quarterback, Chris Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
He was not expected to play ever, but he was playing because our first two guys got hurt, and UT beat us like 27-23. And they were tailgating at our stadium and like acting like they just won the Natty when they barely beat a team. It would end up finishing 500, a 500 Baylor team
Yep.
by 4. It's like this is not very impressive.
No.
Like I guess more power to you guys,
Yep.
but geez.
When you got Oklahoma is up and down. They've had a few, they have a history. They've been in the playoffs recently. More recently, they've been more relevant than Texas has recently. But
Oklahoma has kind of run the Big 12, especially of late. But this last year,
mm-hmm.
and I think the year before, but I know definitely last year they were
right.
They were downright bad. I don't remember if they even made a bowl game.
And we'll talk about them a little bit more later because I'm going to end up with the SEC in a little bit. What they mentioned is that Colorado was one of the founding members of the Big 12 back in '96. So in 2011, they were one of the two schools to leave. One of two schools they left along with Nebraska that joined the Big 10. Let's see how that worked out. And so they had 12 football seasons as members of the Pac-12. They had losing records in 10 of them in 8 years that resulted in 2 or fewer victories, the conference victories. So, but still, I mean, you got now the Pac-12 is now the Pac-9 or the Pac-3 quarter. It's hard to overcome that.
No, it's rough, and it shows. Like if they're losing people to everyone. That's kind of how you're not very desirable, and that's rough. It's tough to take that. And who can they really add? I think that's one of the negatives too for them, for the Pac-12, and I'm sure we'll get into maybe a little bit about the ACC. But the Pac-12, you can't really expand outside of like kind of the Mountain West Conference, really, right? Because
and you're talking about much smaller schools academically, size wise for the student base and all that.
But
you have currently money. You've taken 2 major like 3 major state schools, UCLA, USC, and Colorado, and they're gone now. So then then you're left with, at least for now, Arizona State, Arizona, Cal, the Oregon Ducks, Stanford Cardinal, Utah Utes, who just kind of got in there in the last few years, Washington State Cougars, and the Washington Huskies.
Yeah, and who would you? Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, but like you said, who would you replace him with? But the thing is Buddy is saying right here in this there are still rumors that the Pac-12 is not done falling apart. This is
Mhm.
a rumor about Stanford to join. So if Stanford goes, will Cal go too? We have new articles here also, and I brought this up so you can see what's left. A team like Oregon State is going to be had with that because nobody would want a smaller Oregon school. Because I'm pulling up the other this. Let's see if I can not kill the stream tonight. But all right. But see right here, what we talked about: two more Pac-12 teams. Big, and you touched on this, and please feel free to go with this. Big 12 expansion speculation: Arizona State, Arizona to follow Colorado from the Pac-12. I mean, we got. I mean, you got possibly four more teams that could leave the Pac-12. They'd be down to five teams, and it, you know. So, what are you hearing about this? I mean, does this seem to be serious out there in the Big 12 land?
Well, yeah, this seems to be so. There was an interesting report right after that official Big 12 expansion was announced, not the Colorado one, but the whole thing with they got BYU, Cincinnati, UCF, and who's the other one? You know what I'm talking about?
For the
Hold on,
Big
there's a
12?
magazine right over here. Houston. That's who it was.
Yeah.
So that
Sorry, I'm
was
dealing
kind
with
of
pop ups.
no, that's fine. I was trying to remember because I'm like, no, there's a fourth one. Right after that, there was another thing that said the Big 12 was looking at Colorado, Arizona State, Arizona. No, I think it was Colorado. No, it was Arizona State, Arizona, Washington, and Oregon, which is a very interesting comp because we're like all the way up there. Like that's pretty far away, especially because you're gonna, like you just officially said, you're gonna get UCF and then you're gonna get Washington. Like that's one hell of a travel. But the
But where are they
Arizona,
going to fit in otherwise? So if Washington and Oregon, I mean, if anything, you would if you're a school like that, as long as you can keep that automatic, that top five, the Power Five conference to get into the playoffs, you could be the big dog in a very weak conference,
Mhm.
So,
And
like
this is
MC Wiley says, the Pac-12 continue to hammer schools without a new TV deal. Leadership continues to be so terrible, and I've heard that about the Pac-12 leadership for
yep.
years.
And
So,
at this point, like, what TV deal are they going to get? I mean, you've got all the rumors going around, plus you have the ones that you've already for sure lost. Like, if they couldn't get a good TV deal done when they had USC and UCLA, how are they going to get a good one when they don't have those teams? And they're talking about taking Oregon and taking Arizona. Like, even if Arizona's not the biggest in football, like they've got a big pull. And those are big markets that you're losing in potential. So
mm-hmm.
it's just like
Just the
it's all
LA market by itself. I
yeah,
mean,
like you've already lost a lot. You couldn't secure it before. Now you've lost a lot and you're rumored to lose a lot. Like why would they stay? I feels like the Pac-12 is going to get just it's going to get picked apart. I don't think it can survive. I don't know.
no, it's if we may be watching the death knell of a classic, conference just go by the wayside.
Mhm.
One of the things that stuck out at me today was the whole, the history, the granddaddy of them all, the Rose Bowl, which is always a Big Ten, Pac-10 matchup, or Big whatever 10 Pac-12 now matchup on New Year's Day with the Rose Bowl. I played in Pasadena at the Rose Bowl. Well, guess what? The team that now was in the Pac-10 that played on that field is now gone to the Big Ten. I mean, it like turns it upside down on its head. I mean, could you imagine having a Rose Bowl between Michigan and Oregon State? I mean, if Fiesta Bowl happened one year, but it's not the sexy national lineup as you would have a USC or UCLA Michigan or Ohio State UCLA in that game.
Mm-hmm. No, it's going to be very weird to think of, and people have been joking about. Look, they're talking about what's USC and UCLA going to think when they play a November night game up in Michigan.
Well, you never know. That's what they've said about some of the schools to the south in this daytime noon 3 o'clock games in the south. So we'll see. I mean, it's we know the one thing is the college presidents will be nice and cozy in their well air climated suites and luxury boxes. You
Oh,
know.
that's true.
Well, that's why they have the bikes on the sideline and the little heater lamps and the big fans. You know,
Oh,
player
excuse me.
player
Sorry.
comfort. Yeah, it's okay. It's good. But that's what, and also one school we have not talked about, and it's like our friend Daisy out there, was Utah.
Hmm.
Utah seems to be a wild card in this. You know, about there's articles about what about them. I mean, they really are a recent addition to the Pac-12. It took all this time, finally got into a major conference. I mean, this is a school that I could see going to, would maybe fit better in the Big 12. You know,
Yeah, no, it's
is near
interesting.
Colorado. Yeah, go ahead.
Like you were talking about with Arizona and Arizona State, that their names coming up a lot, and now it's coming up again. To me, they make even more sense than Colorado. You're getting the whole Arizona market right there. Um, Arizona's been had their years. I know we like to make fun of them in basketball, but they've had their years as well. Um, and Arizona State is a very interesting market. They even have like a pretty good or a pretty popular hockey team, which is kind of crazy to think about. Uh, but so adding those to the Big 12 would be pretty interesting. I guess there's no Big 12 hockey, but
Yep. No.
uh, it's and yeah, Utah is kind of there's and I'll bring up this team if you haven't heard of them because Utah, as far as adding them with Colorado, that would make sense, but that's assuming if they expand to the West. There's been a lot of talk about one team specifically, and maybe we can leave. If you want to talk about Utah, I can leave them off. But there's another. Let's talk about maybe because it'll be weird if you have 15 teams in a conference. You usually want to have that even number so you can split it between two divisions or something like
Yeah.
that, or two or four, whatever you're gonna do. So
Yeah.
if they have Colorado, they're probably going to want to add someone else, and who that someone else is. It could be like Utah from the West, or it could be someone from the East has been talking about.
See, one of the things I thought with this article was kind of interesting was that right here that they talk about the parallel to the Western Athletic Conference, how it fell apart. You remember BYU was always the big dog in that conference, and now the Pac-12 is falling apart.
Whack.
And then this is really really quickly too. You know, the
Yeah.
speed of this is what's amazing because like when the ACC when the SEC brought on Texas and Oklahoma, it's like they had to wait 2 years. So it'd be 2024. Now all these conferences are now expanding next year,
I will
all of a
say,
sudden, really quickly.
I think a lot of it is the SEC was kind of I guess Oklahoma and Texas needed the SEC a lot more than the SEC needed them.
Mm.
In these
Yep.
scenarios, the Big Ten is I mean they're getting heavy hitters. I'm jealous of them getting those two big teams. I feel like they'd be better in the Big 10 12, but whatever. There's a reason they chose the Big 10 for the money.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
Same
Yeah.
reason that Nebraska did, and look how it's worked for them, losers. Uh, but
Well, that's the other part that I get. So I mean, you always want to play the best, be the best. That's always the competitive spirit. But still, it's like, why? I mean, you're almost pushing towards you have to do a 12 or 16 game team playoff with this because you're
yep.
going to start excluding so many big schools from any chance of the national championship.
Yeah, and I think the way it's going to be too, especially if you go to this Power Four, essentially, because the Pac-12 is pretty much done. Uh, it's a Power Four conference now. Maybe you might go further and get a Power Three. You never know. Um, you're gonna
I,
get. We always talk about why did Michigan and Ohio State get into the playoffs? Is because they were in the same division, and the only Ohio State's only loss was to Michigan that won the Big Ten. So you're like, well, if the other, you're going to have to put them in because they're good enough. Well, now that could happen with a ton of teams. You could have, yeah, I don't know how the division realignment are going to work. And I've heard like with the SEC, they might not have divisions. Like they
I've
might
heard
just
that
have.
too.
So like with that, you're going to get points where it's like, hey, this team didn't play in a championship game, but they're a good team and only have one loss. So what are you going to do? You have to like it gets confusing. I don't know what you're going to. Yeah, like if Alabama right now, I hope they fail, but I think everyone does, except for Alabama fans, I guess. But if Alabama play, let's say Georgia runs the table, uh, and Georgia plays Tennessee, and Tennessee has, Tennessee loses to Georgia, but they beat everyone else, and including Alabama, and now
Hmm.
it's Alabama's only loss of the season. Well, you've got probably Georgia and Tennessee in the championship. Uh, Whoever wins that game is going to be in. But then you're like, well, Alabama's good enough that they should probably be in with the one loss team. But then you're like, well, Tennessee beat Alabama. They have to be in, right? And, it gets confusing. And that's just the SEC. And when you get this
Yes.
huge Big Ten and the huge Big 12, it's like and the ACC, can't forget about the ACC,
Yep.
is like you're going to have teams, you're going to have a lot more of these Ohio State, Michigan scenarios where they're both in the same, where it's like, well, they didn't make it a championship, but they only have one loss. How, we got to add them to the team. So I guess that's where the
Exactly.
12 team playoff was going to come in handy.
Well, let me say hello to AFK Bard. Welcome, AFK. Good to see you. And folks, feel free
Hello.
to make sure you hit that like button or sub to the channel if you haven't. Feel free to share what you think with football here, with the conference realignments. What we've already had some rumors, some uh, other people say some things about what they've heard. Let us know what you think, what you've heard. See how things will project out. Um, I'm actually going to run a poll in a few minutes, but I'm going to wait a little bit longer to do it because I need to do a little intro before I do that. So we've talked about the Pac-12. We've talked about rumors surrounding Utah, Arizona State, Stanford, um, the Big 12. As a Big 12 fan, overall, do you like what you're hearing with the teams that you're getting? I mean, I know you mentioned that it would have been great to get USC, UCLA. That's obvious. It's like the SEC getting Texas and Oklahoma. But is there any other team out there that we've not heard that you would like to see in the Big
Yes.
12?
So this is
Mm-hmm.
a team that I guess you haven't mentioned yet, but they've been in a lot of negotiation. And I want to know if this happens. I think this is a great fit for the Big 12. And maybe this is a thing. I feel like every conference thinks about football. Um and for them, I mean, I get it why. The football brings the most money. You're talking about, SEC, you only need like one or two. They don't talk about the basketball as much. Definitely not the baseball, even though baseball I think is I think when you're looking at college, the things that bring in the money are the football and the basketball. And
Mm-hmm.
the Big 12 is kind of considered the third tier conference after SEC and the Big 10, even though, everyone likes to talk about, TCU got blown out by Georgia. Well, they beat the Big 12 champs, so we're at the very least the second best conference. But, some
Yeah.
people might not agree. But
Yeah.
anyway, the thing is, the Big 12, of what we've been good at for a long time, and what I'd say you've seen and how long it's taken. Mizzou was a team that was constantly in the basketball conversation, and
Mm-hmm.
they almost immediately plummeted because you don't get the recruits by being an SEC team unless you're Kentucky, and that's a whole different story.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
but the SEC and the Big Ten has been building. These additions are decent that they've had. Um, Decent additions from the BYU has had some good teams. UCF has had some good teams. Uh, Cincinnati obviously recently had some pretty good teams, and same with Houston, but both those are not necessarily the most stable. None of these are really the most stable football organizations. But the big thing you're looking at basketball outside of UCF, who has not been good, BYU has great legacy. Cincinnati has great legacy.
Mhm.
Houston was just recently the number one seed overall. So when you're talking about basketball, they added a lot of teams in. And this is a long way for me to saying we're bringing in Colorado. They don't have a lot in terms of basketball, but they've got a lot. Their football team hasn't been great, but we bringing in Coach Deion Sanders is going to bring a lot of press at the very least
Well,
in
that's
the
another.
near future.
That's another story in of itself with prime time there, where he rotated the roster like an NFL team, where like I think half the team, just they basically ran everybody off, and it just was like a massive roster turnover because I guess he wanted to clear the air and the atmosphere. So it was interesting. Say to
Yeah,
hear some of the stories up there.
it's interesting. I go back and forth on it. Like on one hand, a lot of the stuff that he's said sounds a lot like nepotism, and I think that never works out well for him.
Mhm.
Uh, on the other hand, it's like he cleared out the roster of a team that just won one game last year. It's like I can't blame him too much for that. You'd expect if Florida won one game, you'd want them to clean house too, right? I think that's part of how it goes. Uh, but yeah, I think that's going to help a lot in the near future. But the big thing that they've been talking about for the Big 12 potential expansion teams they've really been talking about is UConn.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. You just added Cincinnati, and you already have West Virginia, so the Big 12 has a kind of a northeastern presence. I don't know if it's not northeastern, but
Yeah.
too much north to be considered south.
Yeah, I've actually seen their name in one of the articles I've read too. So, I mean, you wouldn't think, but it's basketball because their football team sure is not worth bringing in. So,
No, that's the thing. Their football team hasn't been very good. Apparently, they've been putting in resources to the football
yeah.
team now, which is why I think a lot of they've been linked a lot here. Is people are saying, "Hey, look, their football team's not good, but they're committed to growing."
Well, guess what?
Uh,
Our friend Mark D with a C would be happy.
that's true. It's just the Huskies are basketball wise. They don't need. I think that the big question is they don't need the SEC. They don't need the Big 12 basketball wise, but it certainly wouldn't hurt them. And football wise, if they are committed to trying to boost that football program, going to the Big 12 would be a great boost. And I mean, you're talking about if the UConn went to the SEC, that would be the last three, or not SEC. I keep saying SEC. I mean the Big 12. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if they go to
Yeah.
the Big 12, that would be the last three NCAA basketball champions from the Big 12. And that's, basketball isn't as big as football, but it is a big draw. And that's a point. With all those teams in the Big 12, I think that kind of solidifies that it's going to stay around, even if it maybe kind of gets relegated to the lesser of the Power Five teams conferences. Yeah.
Yeah. I gotcha. I gotcha. So, just trying to do something real quick right here. So, trying to make sure I don't bomb the stream. You know what I mean? When I'm starting to multitask, it's always a dangerous thing.
Yeah, I've been there when you've done
Yeah, I
that.
know exactly. Hey, yeah, we all party together when that happens, so it's all good. So I want to jump over to the SEC for a minute because I want to introduce a poll while we talk about a few other things. But I'm trying to get back to where we because I want to do the right lead up to it. So um, because there was an article, one of the we had mentioned the ACC a little bit. And if you
Mhm.
look back at the history of the SEC, they've had some teams leave that have jumped other conferences. Tulane was there years ago. Some of the teams in the ACC moved over. It's a hodgepodge. So even though they have Texas and Oklahoma coming in next year, there's always still the rumors out there that the SEC may go to 20 teams or whatever things there are. So I am going to because I want to get back to I want to put this poll out because there was an article that indicated four teams that the SEC should consider to if they did expansion. So I am I will go with this article in just a second. I'm just trying to get the poll ready. But hey,
Yeah, no problem.
yeah. So basically, with this, the speculation, several of these teams are natural fits. Especially for a team like Florida, are natural rivals. Uh, but the SEC has said they're kind of happy with where they are at this point. No plans to really merge, but I don't believe anybody this day and age because money talks, and
Mm-hmm.
if money is involved and it can bring more money to the conference, to more money to schools, they're going to do what they do. So I know about 10, 20 years ago they talked about these super conferences. Well, we're here now
Yep,
with these
they've
massive
arrived.
size conferences. They have arrived. So four schools that should be considered for potential SEC football expansion. All right. Remember, they
Right?
talk about SEC is big with geography, and they're also about winning. About teams that win. Well, except why do they bring Missouri in, or even Texas A&M for that matter? But hey,
Yeah, I
I,
mean, at
I,
least Texas A&M was. I guess Missouri was good for a bit, but certainly not
yeah.
lately.
Well, one of the teams that they've said is the Clemson Tigers.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the most mentioned teams. They're a natural rival of the South Carolina Gamecocks. They've had a
Yeah,
lot of success in recent years. So,
that's the big thing. They've. You're talking about a team with success. They're it.
yep. So, I mean, you don't rate other conferences for their has-beens or retreads. You don't see
Mm-hmm.
the Big Ten coming after an SEC team like Kentucky. Well, then again,
Yeah,
they'd fit in with Iowa offensively, but you know,
I think that's true.
it's just
Uh,
crazy. So
I think UConn could fit in with Iowa offensively.
I think so too. I think so
I
too.
think if we fielded a team, you got my family, your family together. Okay, I'm just being mean, but
Yeah, I think we could field a damn good football team. And would be our center. That kid could snap a damn ball without even looking back.
I mean,
10 yards.
I've got 7 younger siblings, so we got the numbers for sure.
All right, that's awesome. Well, hey, that's we will do it. Of course, my oldest is a speedy wide receiver, though. Just
uh,
crazy.
I used to be a speedy red receiver. Now I've only got one good ankle, and that ankle is not that good to begin with. But
Yeah, my dad always said it's hell getting old. So, which is interesting with Clemson. They say that they're 13-4 against record in the college playoff era against SEC teams,
Mhm.
and hell studding. He'll be the
Be
kicker.
the kicker
Yeah, like AFK, the state has the Huskies and Cougars.
and the
The ass
Cougars.
kickers. There you go. That's a spirit. That's a spirit. So, let me go ahead and get through these other three teams. The second one, this article is, oh
One of
no,
these articles.
it's the wrong. I hit the wrong button.
I hit these are the worst. They're always
I
like
know
you
they
got to click
hide
through
them.
everything. Come on, just give me it all in one.
I
It's not
know.
that hard.
There's next number one. Okay, yeah. There's next number two. North Carolina Tar Heels. This one
Really?
surprised me a little bit. Yeah,
That's I don't
I've
know.
I've heard Virginia's name mentioned, but North Carolina,
I
it's
think their football team's been better of late, but I guess
yeah,
I want to know what they're thinking.
yeah. It took Matt Brown coming back.
Yeah,
So that's another team. Of course, basketball. This would give us
basketball would be
that
big. That's
this would
for
give the
sure.
SEC a lot because of the basketball side. A third team is a geographic one. The Florida State Seminoles, natural
Hmm.
rival of the Florida Gators,
That
would
one
bring
makes
them in here.
sense.
Yeah, because of course, then there's one of your games. You can increase the number of uh, conference games naturally there with that. So, of course, they've been down for a long time, but coming back a little bit with in last year, Mike Norvell has had a decent year last year, but it still is a program that kind of teetering. But they do have a tradition. They do have some A name out there. And the last one is the Miami Hurricanes.
Yep.
So, folks, I'm going to put the poll out there. I'm going to ask y'all should be the next team brought into the Southeastern Conference. And the choices will be Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina, and the Miami Hurricanes, Miami of Florida. The reason why Miami of Florida is because there's a Miami of Ohio.
That's true. I don't think they're getting added to a Power 5 conference anytime soon.
No.
Or maybe the Pac-12 will say, here, we need people. Get on it.
Oh, buddy's out there threatening the pitching. I could hurt you more with a 4-meter center mass. Oh, my gosh. Oof. Oh, man. Oh, gosh. Oh, buddy coming with heat. But, those 4 teams, I think the Clemson one is definitely the big one to take. But if you took 2, I would say Clemson and Florida State. Well, I you know what? It'd be hard to say not North Carolina because of basketball. But Miami of Florida is a small private school. Miami has the tradition of football from the 90s and stuff, but they're a small private school. What can they really add from that side to the SEC? But go ahead.
I think the private school might be an interesting angle on it because that's why Vanderbilt's in SEC. There is financial. I don't know if the SEC, if they got Miami, if they got the U, they would say, all right, see you, Vanderbilt. I don't know if that's a thing that they would do. But they like to keep. They need, if you have one private school in your conference, you get a little bit more. I forget what it is, but there's a reason that every conference has a private school at the moment. Mm-hmm. But I think Clemson is the number 1 for sure, just because if you're talking about the highest profile and it's regional and the highest profile, I think it makes sense for them. I do think, Florida State maybe would be the second one. One of those Florida schools. I feel like North Carolina, I wouldn't. I mean, I guess it wouldn't hurt. I'm just thinking they're definitely the 4th on the list. I don't know if I think you could have some other teams be better join the SEC than that one. But
yeah, I thought there was a very interesting article with the fact that they chose the teams that they chose. It was I was surprised with North Carolina. I've heard Virginia's name mentioned, which I'm still, that's an ugly school. I mean, yeah, they did win a basketball natty, but they also are the only, until last year, they were the only number 1 seed to lose to 16 seed. But yeah, it just, I just something ugly with Virginia. I don't think they fit into the Southern football. They're more of a East Coast, Northern type of football and basketball than they are Southern. I just don't think culturally they mix in very well.
And I think the thing is, I don't think North Carolina goes anywhere without Duke. I don't think you rarely see historic rivalries get broken up. And that's why I'm thinking if they go, they're going whoever takes Duke as well. And I think what conference wouldn't want that? That's the biggest rivalry, especially basketball wise. Why wouldn't you take both of them? So I don't know who's going to take them, but I feel like, if you want to take North Carolina, you have to take Duke. And if you're the SEC, why would you bother getting those 2 guys when you can get Clemson and Florida State? That would just be better.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. I was, while we were doing this, I multitask, which is kind of an interesting. Okay, this is an outdated article. This is way outdated because it was one to say 5 schools the SEC should consider. One of them's Ohio State, another's Michigan. It's like, forget it.
Wait, who should consider?
The SEC should. It was like it's a crazy ass article. I'm like,
if they take that, it's just that's the and I don't know how it would work. Well, if you take them, then if you take those 2 guys, then the Big Ten is done. And then if you take, and then so the Big Ten would fall apart, and the Big 12, I feel like you'd basically end up having the SEC be where all the major schools, and then like would the Big 12 get absorbed in them too, or would they, right now we have like the Power Five and the what's the other five called?
Uh, Power Five and God, I forgot.
The Power Five and the other
Uh,
five. At
the
this
other
rate,
guys, yeah,
if at this rate, if the SEC takes Ohio State and Michigan, uh, then it's just the the Power Five is basically just the SEC, and then the other five would be the Big 12.
yeah.
Like there's just no one left at that point.
I know it's like why bother? We'll have one super huge conference. I'm still trying to figure out Buddy Hepburn's. What is the basis of that? Unless it was like one of the teams are really bad, it wouldn't hurt you. All right, so folks, we got 9 people here. Make sure y'all hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't. Follow us on Twitch. Let's see where the poll is sitting at. We've got 7 votes. Clemson leads with 43%, followed by Florida State at 29%, North Carolina and Miami at 14%. So, hey, folks, thank you. Make sure you've hit that like button, and thank you for everybody that's here with us tonight. On a special topic night that felt like something worth talking about. Like we said, this is just a crazy landscape. Every time you think something has settled down, then it doesn't. It gets crazier. You hear more stuff. I mean, we're about to see who would have thought that a main conference with the history of the Pac-10, I still call it Pac-10 a long time, is on the verge of falling apart. I mean, we've seen conferences come and go, like the Southwest Conference went out of existence. The Western Athletic was not really a major conference, but see, to me, the Southwest Conference was the old Arkansas, Texas years. That was a major conference back then. It disappeared. It got eaten up by the remnants of the big, it became the Big 12, a lot of the schools and stuff. But, just we've seen conferences go away, but who would have believed that of the Big 5 that we'd have more consolidation to where be, like you said, possibly down to the Big 3.
Yeah. No, it's it's interesting because with the Pac-12 falling apart, it's kind of like, I feel like probably something's next, and I feel like ACC has been talking about it for a while, so that seems to be what the logically next part is.
Yes, which we took a look a second ago at the 9 teams that would be left. If nothing else, let me pull, because we did not talked about the ACC very much. So there. Let me make sure I got everything clicked off this. Okay. So now an article that we just saw about in the backstage was this one, that Florida State would consider leaving the ACC due to revenue distribution. Hey, buddy, if you're still around, if you could clarify that last comment. I'm still focused on that one. Oh my goodness. But hey, it's interesting to see everything, because it's about money these days. So they basically they're saying that they would leave unless there's a radical change in the revenue distribution. So when you get the presidents and their school board talking this stuff, then that means that there's some smoke, which then could be there's fire. Because if the teams are not happy with the way the money is distributed, then then they're going to start looking for their conferences. So FSU has been one that's been pushing for change in the model to reward programs that generate higher television revenue and marketability, areas where it believes it has an advantage. So now the article goes on to say our goal would be to continue to stay in the ACC, but staying in the ACC under the current situation is hard for us to figure out how we remain competitive unless there were a major change in the revenue distribution within the conference. That has not happened. Those discussions are ongoing at all times. So, again, while we're back to money, what the money, you already have. We have the debate about the big sports funding the smaller sports, the non-revenue generating sports. But now when you got schools fighting for their cut of the pie in the conference, then so the ACC ranks third behind the Big Ten and SEC in revenue. they have a conference has a contract with ESPN that runs to 2036. Now to get out of the league, Florida State would have to pay a $120 million exit fee and go to court to challenge the existing grant of rights, which gives ACC media rights for its member schools through the length of the contract, meaning
Oh,
that they would theoretically would have it all the way through 2036, even though they have left the conference. That's kind of
hmm,
weird because you would think leaving the conference it would transfer automatically, but again, the other people that make money, the lawyers.
mhm.
But can you imagine that? That's and this is another issue we've not talked about, and I'm curious to see if people think in the chat too is the exit fees. Look at the money that Texas and Oklahoma had to pay. Look at all these other teams that are leaving conferences. Look at the exit fees they're having to pay, and then for FSU, it had to pay $120 million to get out of a conference. Where does this lose the reasonability? At what point is too much? At what point is any amount too much?
I think it always comes down to this is the thing. This is what Mizzou was doing. They said that it's all about the potential profits. Uh, Moving to SEC, you think, oh, we can get the big prospects, we can get a lot more money, and I'm sure they are getting more money than they did in the Big 12. But uh, they went from Mizzou was a team that they spent time at number one. They had big teams in basketball, and they spent time at number one in the national poll before the current playoff era. Like they were pretty good, and now they're now they're just a has been. I feel like, and
Yeah.
I
See,
guess they
where
get more money.
one thing in this case that I think that there's more to it than just speculation is when the article goes ahead and talks about. Let's see, where's he? Let's see, the athletic director Mike Alford said, "We have a great understanding of what opportunities that are in the document, how that document could hold us back, but also what opportunities are. So this is going to be a discussion. We'll keep getting legal advice. Our legal team has a good understanding of that document." The previous paragraph said, "No school has gone yet to court yet to challenge the grant of rights, which exists in every Power 5 conference. Florida State, along with other schools in ACC, has studied the contract language in the grant of rights for more than a year." That means they're looking for something. So it to me that's kind of the smoke indicating they're not happy. They're looking for every potential avenue to see about getting out. You know, where it
Mhm.
costs as little as possible.
Well, and I will say, I think, and this is probably going to sound crazy, and to a point it is, but I think UCF going to the Big 12 is kind of a sparked a fire for specifically Florida State and Miami and the other conferences. You've had the
Mm-hmm.
Big 12 getting, I guess, UCF getting uh, going to the Big 10, 12, and the Big 10 getting USC and UCLA is all. Those two teams going to the Big 10 is kind of like, hey, at this point in time, we're not really worried about regional conferences anymore. Anyone can get anyone. And UCF getting in Florida, it was kind of like uh, it didn't make the only place for Florida to go was either the SEC or the ACC.
Mm-hmm.
But now you've got basically saying, hey, the Big 10 wants to take these guys. And also the Big 12 is now now it is a Florida division, even if it's just
Yep.
UCF. Like it opens up to the point where, hey, if the ACC falls, which would be the most likely next one to go, I think, uh,
Yeah.
Florida State and Miami have options, and I think all three conferences would be interested in those for obvious reasons.
Because if and don't say it can't happen because we look at the Pac-12 with the history of those schools and leaving.
Mm-hmm.
It would not take much for the ACC to fall apart. And hell to JT Kirk, Mister
Ooh.
from Big Ten land, actually. JT,
Oh.
we talked about your conference pirating off the Trojans and the Bruins, and possibly the other rumors are maybe Oregon, Washington are part of the discussions. There's serious news reports about that, And of course, the standard channel greeting. Damn it, Mark. Jeez. So,
No,
uh,
that's the interesting thing of how the Pac-12 goes. Because I think we're all in agreement here that it's done for. Like it's over.
well, I tell you what,
Um,
though, I do not think it would take much for the ACC to go. If the Pac-12 could go so quickly, what's the point of the ACC? Look, hey, yes, Sparty. There's a Sparty fan here. So,
ah,
but I tell you what. Well, here we go. Buddy said, "You think the NCAA would want to regulate this more, especially with national title implications?" You would, but I think the NCAA itself is kind of impotent as an organization. It's really
yeah,
made up of volunteer. The universities and all agree to be part of it. They really don't. I mean, they can quote enforce their recruiting rules and certain things, but when it comes to the end of I think all the universities give the NCAA its power, so it's kind of like enforcing it on yourself, which it's very difficult to do that. I do agree with you, buddy. I mean, I do not, and this debate has gone on since the '90s. I remember listening to sports talk locally uh, with some of the guys back then, and they were talking about super conferences, this, that, and the other. And it just, to me, the competitive balance is all just so messed up because now you got so many teams in it that it's going to be hard for teams to make postseason play now unless you really expand the playoffs. They're expanding it already, I think, to 12, but you may have to expand it further than that, with these 20 team conferences if it continues in that direction. So,
mhm.
but hey, go ahead and make sure y'all vote in a poll tonight. Let's see where we are. 10 votes. Wow. Oh, FSU's leading 40-30 over Clemson, North Carolina 20, and Miami 10. Awesome. Good to see. We got double digit votes. Ooh, make sure y'all hit that like button. We got a new sub tonight. Yay. Thank you.
Woo,
A new sub. Appreciate that.
awesome.
Oh, MC Wally. Hey, hope you're still here. Thank you, sir. I just saw the notification. Actually, it disappeared on my YouTube. And anyway, but thank you. All right. So this is where we are with there's a whole bunch of scrambled mess, big issues that we will never be able to solve. But hey, let's look at, 2023. Let's look at the teams that switch conferences July 1, shall we?
Mhm.
All right. Well, we'll start off with one team that you mentioned, one of the very last of all the independent teams, the BYU Cougars. Hey, I mean, old WAC, then independent, now moving into the Big 12. Your thoughts again on this one?
I think it'll be interesting. They're talking about BYU might be the best team right away for the Big 12 for football. Uh, I don't know for sure because those football teams, again, like, hey, they've been pretty good, uh, but they haven't played a lot of competition, honestly. The
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested basketball wise. I wonder if this helps them up because, yeah, BYU has a pretty rich history there. Even if they don't have the recent results, they've got the history, and I mean,
Yeah.
that's what brought UT to the SEC, the history. So,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know with this one. I'm like, but then again, they've gotten some prominence. They've gone out of conference playing SEC schools at times, so maybe this is a good one for the Big 12. I look at it as like a UCF kind of coming in.
mhm.
Um, Charlotte 49ers. Now they're moving from the Conference USA to the American Conference, which is really an interesting. It's like a replace. We talked about that with the Pac-12. Well, now the American Conference loses, I think, UCF, Houston, Cincinnati. So now they're having to replace those bigger teams, with the up and comers like Charlotte,
Yeah,
uh, Cincinnati Bearcats, moving from the American to the Big 12. I know you're a fan of this one.
yeah, it's a big deal. You got the history with the basketball and also the recent success. Cincinnati, I think it's clear they're going to try. I
Mm-hmm.
like that. And it gives
All
us
right,
more of a northeastern presence because
that's
it's
cool.
for a while. I know it's kind of weird to be there, but it's like, hey, you kind of just have West Virginia out there for no reason.
Yep.
Now we've
I,
actually got someone else out there.
Well, JT said, I don't think the Big Ten will take either Oregon or Washington. The lame asses heading up U of M, MSU, etc. think college students will drink less if they get the noon game. 9 a.m. too early in Oregon.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
that's
Time zone differences. That is the thing. I still can't get used to some of these 11 a.m. starts.
I hate
You know,
11 a.m.
I
starts.
hate that. It's why. I mean, it should be 12 o'clock local, no earlier.
Yep. Though
So,
I can't agree with JT Kirk. The few times that we had an 11 a.m. start on home games, that did not stop us from drinking. So,
oh, yeah, they will. Tell the LSU fans not to drink at 11 o'clock in the morning. So,
yeah.
all right. The FAU Owls are now moving up. They had a good run in the NCAA basketball tournament. Now they're moving
Yeah.
up from Conference USA to the American Conference, same as Charlotte. The Houston Cougars, another moving over to the Big 12.
Yep.
It's funny how it's like the Conference USA is feeding the Americans feeding the Big 12. It's really funny to look
Yeah,
at
it's
that.
kind of funny. I'm happy about it. I think Houston is the best one just because it's one that actually makes geographical sense. And like you just saw the success they've had in basketball. Not too long ago, they were having some pretty good success in football too. Like I feel like they're the closest one that they might have the least history between them, but they're the guys who have had the most recent success in both sports, at least.
Yeah, like you said, it's the geographic thing with this one. What gets me is, see, I'm old, Whoopa. I'm old, you know? And I remember when teams like Houston were just sped upon, looked down on, thumb nose down, from old elitists and the old conferences. And now here they are on the brink of becoming a major part of a Power Five conference.
Yeah.
It's it's really strange. It's kind of an odd juxtaposition from where it started years ago to where they are now. You would never think Houston or things like that, teams like that would be up there with say the Kansas, even the Kansas States, um, the Texas Techs, and all them. But to me, that makes sense though. If you're a fan of Texas, all you really need to do is get A&M and Texas back, and then you really have a good conference, like the old Southwest Conference used to be. But,
Yep.
all right, Jacksonville State Gamecocks. Hey, I know these guys because they're part of the Atlantic Sun. So they're
Not
moving on
anymore.
up. Not anymore. They are moving up. Of course, they beat FSU a couple years ago, which is kind of funny. Liberty is also, what's interesting, Liberty played basketball in the Atlantic Sun, but football was independent. Hugh Freeze was their coach who's just gone to Auburn. So, it'll be interesting to see with a change in coach moving up the Conference USA. They probably will do okay with this move up. The New Mexico State Aggies, a perpetual bottom dump team,
Yeah.
are actually joining a conference. As we're seeing, there are very few independent schools out there to begin with, and now in football, and now two of them have now joined conferences.
Yeah.
Again, a North Texas, Middle Even Conference USA going to the American.
It's one of my favorite colleges.
Rice Owls, the same thing.
How can you not like a team called the Mean Green? That's just the best.
How do you not like a team called Rice?
Not
You get hungry. Oh yeah, Notre Dame should
Notre
just get left
Dame.
behind without being in the Big Ten. Yeah, well, let's talk about that in just a second before we wrap up. Sam Houston Bearcats. Wow, they challenged Texas A&M last year, but now they look at that. It's they're they're moving on up.
Yeah.
UAB, another Conference USA to the American.
I will tell you, they have the worst jerseys.
Yeah,
I only realized this recently because I was doing work for my second job and trying to read their jerseys when it's like the white and the cream, like white jerseys and like cream numbers. You're like, who
yeah,
is that? I have no idea which player this is. And it is frustrating.
it's horrible. They are ugly. And guess what? Trent Dilfer is their head coach, first time college coach.
Oh yeah.
So
I think I like first time college coaches in like smaller schools, you
yeah,
know?
Well,
I think it's always
Scott Frost did well at UCF, but then didn't do
yeah.
it so well at Nebraska.
Nebraska's cursed though. I think.
Yeah, I know. I agree. Another one you've mentioned also is the UCF Knights.
There's such a crazy the things that I've seen from them. They've had like I forget who they had who was like their coach and athletic director who like he led them to, no he was their coach and led them to like a 10-11 win season and then became their athletic director and the team immediately tanked. Then they hired Frost and he took the team from like 0-12 to 12-0 in 2 years and then now they're back to kind of in the middle now. It's like, yeah,
Yeah,
this is one hell of a roller coaster they're on right now.
absolutely. And here's a fun name of it: the University of Texas San Antonio Roadrunners.
Oh, pizza.
Yep. They spent 2 years in the FCS, one as an independent, one in the WAC, before jump to FBS in 2013. So wow, look at it. They're moving up to the Big 12. Yes, sir.
Yep.
They are moving on up.
BYU, Cincinnati, UCF, and Houston.
It is insane to see what. That's what we were talking about earlier. The craziness, just the whole craziness that's out here in the world with the conference realignments, and we're not even getting into stuff like the name, image, likeness, or things like that. There's other topics
Yeah.
we could consider. We could uh, kick the tires on sometime, and just it's a crazy world. I don't know that I like this craziness in my college sports though.
No, I don't. It's uncertain, and it makes you wonder because, like, well, I want to talk about one thing real quick, and then we can talk about like the Pac-12. So we know Colorado going to the Big 12, USC and UCLA going to the Big 10. So that leaves 9 other schools,
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of assume that the Pac, like, can the Pac, will the Pac-12 survive as like a Pac-8 now, going back to the Pac-8? And
Well,
like be another like a group of 5 conference. That's what it's called, group of 5.
well, the thing is depends because I mean, if you look at it, assuming nobody else leaves, Arizona State, Arizona, Cal, Oregon, Oregon State, Stanford, Utah, Washington, and Washington State. You theoretically could have some but you can't lose. Even the Arizona schools, even though they've been very pedestrian for a long time, it just losing them too and replacing them. The thing is, who do you replace them with? You're not going to replace them with a sexy pick. You're going to get the up and comers, which is not going to do much for your conference.
No, that's the thing, and I don't. So I don't know. Do they just fully fall apart, or do they become like a mid-major kind of conference? And if they do, like, it's hard to see at least Oregon sticking around. Like, why would Oregon stick around? They have the pedigree to go somewhere else, and that's kind of what I'm wondering with. And what I'm also wondering is, like, if you look at SEC, why they've wanted to get into a lot of schools is they want to get the market, right? They wanted to get the Missouri market. They wanted to get into the Texas market. They want to get Oklahoma market, et cetera, et cetera. That's
Right.
the big thing. And I understand why. And that's why I'm wondering, like, they have these rumors, right? Like, oh, they're going to get Oregon and Washington. I
Mm-hmm.
don't see why you'd. I guess I can understand why you'd want to get the one school, but I think what makes more sense and what you're probably going to see is if you can get those 2 teams. Like if you can get an Arizona and Arizona State, like that, if Big 12 gets those, like it's official, Arizona is Big 12. You're not gonna if you're watching something in Arizona for college sports, it's gonna be going to the Big 12 essentially. Um, and Oregon would be an interesting one. I I wonder how it goes. Um, if you get because I guess Washington and Washington State. I know that that's a huge rivalry. I've talked to a lot of people. There's a lot of people from Washington that went to Baylor. They're like, oh my gosh, it gets ruthless when Washington and Washington State are playing. So at the same time, I know Washington has some legacy. Washington State doesn't have a lot. So it's kind of, if you just get Washington, like, that's probably better, but you will probably want that rivalry. And
Yeah.
Oregon is another team that Oregon State has been up and coming. I don't know if you want to just get Oregon and leave Oregon State behind.
Well, yeah, but then again, in other cases like in the SEC, if Miami or Florida State came out of the SEC, you've got a renewal of rivalries right there. So
Yep.
those rivalries say a lot. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see Texas A&M playing again. You know, because that's one of the problems with the previous realignments. It destroyed some of the natural rivalries, and that seems to be a dying thing. Is that these classic old time rivalries are drying up because of a lot of these realignments and stuff. I wanted to point out this real quick too is. With the independence, we saw New Mexico State and BYU move from independence to conferences. It's going to, I mean, you can't, it's hard to survive without the conference revenue. There are only 4 independent teams left. Of course, Notre Dame, but look, it's UMass, UConn, who's also rumored to be coming out of conference at some point. The Army. So you just look, there's 3 little, really almost nobody's, and then you got Notre Dame. And I like what JT Kirk said. I was like, basically leave Notre Dame behind and not let them pick and choose, which that's another issue and another show of itself. What should be done with Notre Dame? Should they be allowed to pick and choose, quasi align with the ACC, or or be told either join one or not?
When you look at it, I mean, I think UMass is gonna. I guess I don't know how long they've been an independent, but I wouldn't be surprised if they just get. What am I thinking of? If they get into like a Conference USA or whichever one they get into, I wouldn't be shocked if they get into a minor one. UConn, I am really pushing. I want them in the Big 12. Before I got into, I'm a Baylor fan through and through now, but I didn't really root for a lot of college sports until I went to college.
Yeah,
UConn was always the one I liked, and it was because I like dogs and huskies. That's the only reason.
There you go.
But also, they were really good. That basketball team. I watched a lot more college basketball growing up than college football.
Oh yeah. Well, hello to Phantom Outsider. Hey, Phantom Outsider and Jeremy, 5 Russia approved. Hey,
hello.
Greetings, friends. So, yeah, I like what JT Kirk said about Notre Dame, but also a couple points he raised. The market can seriously degrade your product. The Big Ten push for Rutgers, Maryland, and Nebraska for the TV markets of DC, Baltimore, and New York City and Nebraska. Really, it's questionable what kind of return they got for the investment. I mean, you might have that New Jersey, New York market, but Rutgers was not like it was there for a while. Maryland is down again, and Nebraska, of course, is a dumpster fire that probably will never be what it was, close to what it was years ago. So, here I use it. He used dumpster diver though. The result is dumpster diver games people hate against Rutgers and Maryland. Nebraska is fading worse than Tennessee, although Tennessee's coming back now. So be sure to come catch my SEC special Friday the 25th. So fans can't travel to those away games, and you really don't get much more. So, and the TV counts usually actually dip because you're no longer playing Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota. You're playing Rutgers that can't score its way out of a paper bag. Well, be kind to Kentucky. If you're going to do that, throw Kentucky there. Sorry, and Iowa. I'm sorry. I never forget you with your love for Kentucky. Awoopa. Hey, Jess. Thank you for lurking. Hey. Yeah, exactly. Because the Big 12 is going to be what? The Big 14, and the Big 10 is going to be Big 15 or
16.
something? 16.
Yep.
How am I supposed to keep up with it? I keep getting the Big 10 and Big 12 screwed up all the time.
Well, the thing is, too, year? I was going to say, at first it was like, oh, man, once UT and OU leave, it's going to actually be the Big 12 for a bit. But now we're getting Colorado in, so that's going to be the Big 13. That's what we're supposed to do with this.
Oh, my goodness. So, JT Kirk, I have a whole special strong disliking for Kentucky, but it's a basketball discussion. Got no place here. But, hey.
Well, that's I'm sure it goes along with something. I've been seeing a lot of people joke about saying, I prefer college sports when they just paid the athletes under the table.
That is too funny. So yeah. And so he said the Big Ten was like 4 teams and Big Ten 20 or something. Yeah, exactly. Well, the Big 12 is going to have a few more than 4, but the whole point is hey, at least they're better off. Both conferences are better off than the Pac-10 though, Pac-12, because at least the Big 12 is replacing with some kind of up and coming teams with some future. While the West Coast, who do they pick from? Like we said earlier,
Yeah, the
Boise.
big thing would be taking from the Mountain West. It's
Yep.
yeah, are you going to get Boise State? Which I will tell, I think they would take it, but I think a lot of people have said when you look at all the teams that have joined, all the teams that have joined big conferences and all the realignment, the fact that no one's taken Boise State after they put up arguably one of the best stretches of 4-year stretches of football ever, or at least in a long time. It's I think that says a lot, because those teams were good, and it's not just like UCF when they're like, well, we're the best, and then they played a real opponent and got whooped. Boise State had the famous Statue of Liberty play. They played big teams and they won. If they were in the college football playoff, if they were in this playoff era, they would have been in the playoffs quite a few times. It's just once you have the current national championship format where they kind of get left out.
Yep. Nope. I got you, sir. Well, we made it. I think we've covered the topic pretty good for what we can. Any other last thoughts or speculation?
No, I think it's going to be interesting. I think with the Pac-12 going, I do think you're going to see probably a split. I think you're going to see a lot of people go to the Big 12 or the Big 10, and the unlucky few that don't, I think you're going to see Mountain West bound or something like that. So we'll see how it goes for them. Mm-hmm. I think ACC, we kind of talked about it. There's not enough for us to know yet, but it sure seems like something's happening.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. So let's see. Yeah. All right. I'm going to pull up the last schedules we got here. Wow, we still got 10 people with us. Isn't that something? Woo. Appreciate you guys with sports ball, folks. And we kept
the sports ball.
Yeah, we've been right about 10 the whole time, off and on, and it's really impressed. Thank y'all for coming through. Got some knowledgeable sports people out here. Appreciate this. I want to do some more of this stuff as it comes along. So, but this is one that was really a breaking story the other day. I wanted to get to it. I wanted to throw a stream in the middle of the week on Wednesdays. So I appreciate everybody being here tonight. JT Kirk. No love for any of the MAC schools this year. Everyone's sticking around. Yeah, the teams are practice girls for the Big Ten, but you will get great players in the NFL. Yes, exactly. I tell you, the MAC schools have actually challenged the Big Ten at some years. So they've had some competitive games, but yeah, at least it's not Georgia Southern beating you like Florida had happened years ago, thanks to Will Muschamp. But we won't keep remembering that. So, with that being said, let me look at something real quick. Let us close the poll. We got 12 votes on the poll and 13 likes. Wow. Nice. This has to be one of the greatest sports streams we've ever had.
Woo.
Yeah, I appreciate it, folks. So, hey, thank y'all for being here and stuff. Toledo beat Michigan. Yeah. So, exactly. Yep. Oh, I tell you what, a story that we had if they're still in the chat, they might remember this kicker who played for the arena team locally that actually was the kicker for Appalachian State the year that they beat Michigan in the Big House.
Oh, so, the best.
That was the best. And especially with Michigan lining up to win and then having the kick blocked, nearly run back for a touchdown. That was something. But hey, I'll let somebody else talk about that later in the season when they're a guest on the show as we do it. So with 8 people still in the chat, I'm going to close this poll out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. and a half, and 3/4 or 1/4, and an eighth, and we will close it with 12 votes. Let's see. I hit end poll. Let's see if it does. It did the delay. You know how it says don't hit this button 3 times. So it doesn't run your credit card. I have hit the end poll button like 3 times. It won't end the poll, folks. It's not my fault this time. It's not my fault. It will not end the poll.
That's what they always say.
It will. There it is. Finally, jeez. We have which should be the next team brought in the. It printed the results now. Yes, which should be brought in the Southeastern Conference? Clemson 41%, Florida State 33%, North Carolina 16%, and Miami, Florida 8%. It's
no love for the Miami.
And I tell you what, that shows you how time changes things. Because you imagine in the 90s and even probably towards the late 90s, with the way the U was dominant, and the late 80s and into the 90s, it would have been definitely the U,
Mm-hmm.
Now, because everybody hated them. The Gators would have been a better rival. It would have been interesting. So I will say though, as a Gator fan, and maybe that's something we could do if we do some research sometime about a show we could do, is the lost rivalries.
Yep.
Like Florida and Miami used to play, but then I do think Florida chickened out because of the quote needing the extra home game crap, and they never. Spurrier wanted to add it back, but they never would or could financially, supposedly. So, but
yeah, I know Kansas and Mizzou is a big one. That one was, I can tell you still they don't play anymore, but if you see someone with the KU shirt, like hat or shirt or whatever, you give them dirty looks over here in Missouri.
yes,
It's like, who do you think you are? Get out of here.
exactly. Well, that's something for another day. We can kick the tires on it. We also can kick our tires on more shows this fall. I'd like to see about if doing something a little more timely with score recaps or something. But
hey, I have an idea, and we can talk more about this later. But I figure while I'm here, I can ask you.
Yeah.
What do you think about the channel? We've got a few sports people here in the chats, and you and me, obviously. We could have a fantasy football league, whether it's college or NFL. We could do college fantasy league. You could do an SEC only fantasy league. There's a lot of fun stuff we could do with that.
Yeah, as long as I don't have to run it though.
I can do that. That's fine.
There you go.
If there's no money involved, that would obviously be confusing. But I'd love a good old fashioned trash talk and a chance to beat you again.
There you go. I know. And hello, Mrs.
Hello.
She's here. Did you hit the like button? You're okay with that? I wonder if she's popping
off
on
the bat.
Well, I tell you what. Yeah, exactly. Probably 15 likes. Hey, thanks everybody. We got at least one new subscriber. Let me double check the count tonight. Thank you, MC Wally was the new subscriber tonight. Appreciate that. I just want to double check before we shut down real quick to make sure if there's any others. So, yep, that's the one sub tonight. 15 likes. And folks, thank y'all for being here. Whoopa, thank you for coming on short notice. Just invited you today. Thank you as always.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Let me see. Mrs., are you able to throw Whoopa's chat link in the chat for me real quick? But Whoopa, go ahead and tell everybody about yourself a little bit if you can.
Oh, I'm Pokemon. I do some streaming over on my channel. Though I'm having connection issues as always. But I'm trying to get some new content out. I'm gonna try and have a. What am I thinking of? I'm trying to make some videos. I need to make an update video, channel update to let you guys know stuff. But yeah, so head on over.
All right. So let me see. Let's see. I'll get that there. Thank you, Mrs. Thank you so much for putting that link out there. Appreciate you here for that. Go check Whoopa out. Appreciate you being here. Like I said, Whoopa, short notice. Thank you, everybody that's been here in the chats. So let me tell y'all a little bit what's coming up in August, real quick. In a couple of minutes remaining, we are it could be a random sports thing if I want to. But listen, for August, we got an interesting lineup this month. Friday night, join me in the great clobbering times as we talk about the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Hey,
And we're
I'm
going to,
going there soon.
oh, you are.
Yep,
Well,
on
please,
the 11th through the 13th, we're heading over.
please make sure you come by beforehand and join us Friday night and hopefully talk because Clobbering, I can't remember if he's been there. I think he or not, but he knows a lot of the history of the Hall of Fame and he's classic old school football. We're going to take a look at the 2023 class. So, enshrinement class. I guess they use the word enshrinement now, not induction. Uh, so please join us for that on Friday night. Sunday the 6th at 5 p.m. will be part 2 of Collecting with Pat S. We had such a good time. We did not even finish his collection in the first 3 hours. We had to bring him back to finish up big arcade games, like quarter operated machines and stuff among the stuff we'll be looking at this time. So join us for that. Next Wednesday night at 9 p.m. is a special time with the wonderful Miss Martin Muses. If you've never had a chance, very, very nice lady. Wonderful stuff. She's toured Europe some. She had a stream on Gettysburg, does some Lord of the Rings. So it's really it's going to be a nice chill chat with us next Wednesday night, whereas we get to spend some time with her. Then on Friday the 11th, the Missus comes out. The Missus and the Great Hungry Boy come out as we pillage the village. Come, help us make fun to torch the wonderfully horrible movie made by M. Shalamali Ding Dong. So, hey, we're going to pillage that village tonight. But Hungry has already said he's going to be fair. There's going to give some credit where credit's due. But, hey, join us for that on that. The 16th at 8 p.m., we bring back the Walking and Rambling podcast with my great kid, Angelo. Hey, so join us for that special time. Then on Wednesday the 30th at 8 p.m., we'll be at the movies with Daisy Blossom Flower Child. We're going to look at the weakest of the 3 Indiana Jones movies. Yes, I said 3, The Temple of Doom. But come share your thoughts on it with us as we do that. You notice that there's not necessarily stuff in between because Dadman has got to be working on football for the SEC preview show on Friday, August 25th, and our first college football show, SEC Weekly with Dadman, will be with the great Daisy Blossom Flower Child on September 1 at 8 p.m. So, busy month, but hey, may not look like it, but it is. And great gaming will pop up from time to time. As I mentioned, Clobby. Friday night, join us for that. Pat S on Sunday. And then also on the 19th, will be the 1-year anniversary. We've got 427 subscribers now. That's 17 days to get 73. Oh God! If it happened, I don't know what I would do. I'm just grateful for all that I've got.
48-hour stream.
48. If I did, I don't know.
72-hour stream. Let's make it happen.
Oh God, I can't promise anything like that. My dad told me don't write a check your butt can't cash, and man,
hey, that's okay. You just take you can do it on the weekend. Take one day off of work, and you can have sleeping as part of your stream. We'll have a Dadman snoring ASMR.
Oh, Asmer, streaming Asmer. You know what? Aang actually, I think, has a way of doing it with the mods actually running something. Okay, could do that.
There you go. We got it. All right. So Dadman agrees to the 72-hour stream.
Dude, I don't. I gotta have plausible deniability because my wife might kill me at that point. But hey, either way, join us Saturday, August 19th for a fun time that night as we celebrate. So, all right. So, like I said, we do some gaming and stuff. So the best thing is follow me on Twitter at DadmanWalking55, best place for stream updates. Also, check out my live streams and videos on YouTube.com, DadmanWalking55, and Twitch.tv, DadmanWalking55. Playlists need to be cleaned up a little bit, but we've got things and stuff. So, go check it out. If you haven't seen our football shows last year, go look and see. I hope that you give them a chance because it's a lot of a personal recollection of memories of football with people. Then also, we get into some of the real football. Hey, this is the first time I've seen this. I'm used to seeing hashtag blame Castle or Jeremy, but hashtag blame Whoopa.
What did I do?
I don't know.
I'm
It's
a
72 hour
perfect
stream.
little angel. I've never done anything wrong in my
I know
life.
you're not. I know you haven't. But hey, folks, on that note, everybody, y'all have a wonderful night. Thanks for being here. Whoopa, thank you again, and we will catch you later. Bye, all.